You spend your adult life saving towards a home, a wedding, maybe to launch a business or quit your job. The illusion of achieving these financial goals is usually very quickly disrupted by the reality of having to start all over again. Do you think social media glamorizes this idea of home ownership and these milestones?
No one has seen the amount I spent on an architect, on engineer, on building control.
Wait till you get to decorators. You think that's the finishing part and it's easy, but...
Once you find out how much concrete costs.
On today's podcast, I'm joined by my friend Gabriel Nussbaum, also known as That Money Guy, who is one of the most followed financial content creators in the UK. And you would have seen Gabriel routinely invited to interview the Prime Minister and Chancellor at Downing Street. Today, though, we're talking about the real psychological cost of hitting your goals and how we plan on starting again. So for anyone that hasn't started their investment journey, we're with you now. We're starting at the same line, and we're starting over with our savings and investments as well. But what is your thinking now as you're coming into starting over? How are you going to approach things this time around?
So I'm like...
Welcome, my friend.
Thank you very much for having me. What an intro.
Thank you for being here. It's so funny because we actually had this conversation twice in passing, and we were like, we need to save this until we can record it. And we find ourselves in similar positions. But I'm glad to be sitting in front of you and having this conversation. For anyone that hasn't seen you before and has been living under a rock, how would you describe what you do at the moment?
I think you put it really well, but my objective is very simple. It's just to try and get people in this country or elsewhere better with money. I'll repeat it, but everyone knows it. We don't learn it in school. We don't learn it in uni. No job teaches it to us. Whether you like money or you don't like money, whether you are motivated by it or not interested in it, not knowing about it will be detrimental to your future because we all have to use it, right, on a daily basis. So my objective is just interest people, and my vice for that has been through the world of content and social media. I've been doing it for 4 years. I absolutely love it. It's my passion, and it's the only thing I can imagine doing for the rest of my life.
And you're very good at it. Like many of us in the world of content, and I guess when we started out about 5 years ago or more, was it something that you planned to go this way?
Do you know what? It was just a hobby. It's a weird hobby, I'm not going to lie. And I do appreciate that, to be like, I'm going to record myself trying
Talking
to
to
teach
myself.
something on the internet. But I don't know. Throughout my last year of university, I was studying engineering. It was a very intense degree. But
At Imperial as well. Nerd.
Yeah, I was a massive nerd. I still am a massive nerd. But I was just obsessed with this idea of digital education. I was watching, people like Yes Theory or Ali Abdaal, and they were just pioneering this new way of sharing information on the internet. And the moment I left university and I joined a company who were like, log off at 5 o'clock. Great culture, by the way. Big up Barclays. But yeah, they were telling me to log off at 5. I was like, wow, I've got time. Throw COVID on top of that when I couldn't see friends or I just had all this time, and I was like, no more excuses. Let me just start creating. I'm not going to lie, I knew the business implications. I knew that if you become a content creator down the line, there's benefits to that. Yeah. But ultimately, if you start this career with that in mind, or that as your only goal, then you'll never succeed. You need to love the process and like the impact that you can make on just one person at a time. Yeah. So to answer your question, I kind of hoped this is where it would go. Yeah. But it wasn't.
I remember when you started popping up on my feed early on. I was like, "Who's this guy, man?
This is a weird guy that talks about money far too much on the internet." I mean, talking about money at all is a weird thing to do, and then talking on the internet is weird. Combine the two together, and you got me in a sandwich.
Were you always savvy though with your money?
I don't think I ever thought of myself as a personal finance expert. I still don't really, although some people say that about me. But I was always good with it. I always knew what I was doing money. I was always the guy that friends and family were like, oh, what saving accounts are you using at the moment? But I think for me, it was just, I was so interested in that topic the moment I started earning money. And I started reading and I started watching and I just started devouring content. And a lot of it, I was just like, this is so overcomplicated. And ultimately, I was just taking it and I was like, they're just all saying the same stuff in different words. Like, why can't we simplify it? And so I think maybe I've become a bit of a money expert or a bit of a money nerd. But my thing's always just been just teach as I learn.
Teach what you learn, absolutely. And that's the best way to remember things as well when you teach other people.
That's what my teachers used to tell me.
It's funny because, and the reason I ask is because I came from the angle of being so crap. like so bad, and making so many mistakes when it came to money. And I was like, why don't I understand this? And when you went to do something about it and actually learn everything, you're like, this stuff is actually quite simple, but it's made to feel really complicated. And then the process of like, okay, let me learn and teach as I learn, and slowly you realize how far you can go with the information that's out there.
Absolutely. And I think that will even be relevant in today's conversation, because there's so many things that I'm still learning in the world of finance. Like, I'm still a baby when it comes to money and all this kind of stuff. Like, I've still got 50 years of career ahead of me. There are so many things that I'm going to learn and find out, and you're going to hear in this conversation. I'm going to make comments, I'm going to say things just based off what I've learned in the past 12 months alone. And now I'm teaching that on the internet. But like I said, I never tell people what to do. I'm just trying to share experience and just open ideas, I guess, make people interested. That's my ultimate goal, not to ever tell someone like, do it this way, because I don't know if it's the right way yet.
Yeah, absolutely. And do you know what? I think I'm beginning to realize, after being in this space for about 5 years, that's probably why people have gravitated towards the likes of yourself or come into our community, because they find us much more relatable, because it suits the place they are in their life at that moment in time. But even you, looking back to when you started 5 years ago, right? Your opinions have matured. They're not necessarily changed, but they've matured because of your experiences that have matured. And same thing with me. And that's part of what we're going to talk about today, right? Because people kind of follow you on that trajectory, and they're like, oh, okay, they're in this position now, and they can share what they're learning through their experiences from being in this position, and that might give me a bit of an insight. So it's true, and I think people, that's why it's important actually that there is a variety of financial content creators out there, because people will be at different stages and they can relate to different creators. A quick shout to thank our sponsors for this episode, PensionBee. As a leading online pension provider, PensionBee is on a mission to build pension confidence and create a world where everyone can enjoy a happy retirement. PensionBee offers a range of pension plans to suit different needs, including a tracker plan, which follows the global markets, a climate plan, which invests in companies actively reducing their carbon emissions, and a Sharia-compliant pension option. Their plans allow you to align your retirement savings with your values. If you're self-employed, PensionBee has you covered too. Their flexible pension plans are designed with you in mind, allowing you to contribute as much or as little as your income allows. You're in complete control of your retirement savings, and signing up only takes a few minutes. With PensionBee's easy-to-use app and website, you can combine your old pensions, make contributions, and even withdraw your money when the time comes. So if you're ready to take control of your retirement savings, download the PensionBee app today. And remember, as with all investments, your capital is at risk. Thanks again to PensionBee for supporting this episode. Now back to the episode.
For sure, you might be interested in me today and not care what I say tomorrow. That's absolutely fine. I just think as long as you are doing something to enhance financial education in your life, I don't care if it's through me or if it's not through me. Because like you mentioned, I'm going to mature, I'm going to change, I'm going to talk about different topics and different things. I'm not talking about the same stuff I was talking about on the internet 2 or 3 years ago. And yes, sometimes my opinions have changed as I've been educated by myself, educated by further research, educated by my audience sometimes. That's the hard way.
Big time.
And things have had to change. Like even right now, I don't want to give away too much of the conversation, but we're both talking about buying a property. And I've made so much content about the benefits of renting because I was a renter for a really long period of time. And the moment I mentioned that I bought a property, people were like, oh, you flipped. Oh, you've changed. Like so was everything you were saying before not true? And I'm like, well, actually go and listen to what I was saying. I never really slated one or the other. I never said one was the only way. I was just explaining the justification for both sides. And that's often what I'm doing, is just making sure that a lot of times when it comes to money or finance debates, both sides are fine. Ultimately, they just have to suit you as a person, and you have to know the reason why you're doing it. Doing things blindly is more of an issue. As long as you're doing something knowing you're doing it. If you're spending all your money, but you know why you're spending all your money and you don't want to save, that's your decision. Who am I to say that's wrong?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny because on the internet, sometimes things only exist in binaries, and it doesn't take into account that your context might actually shift and make you more suitable to the other side, right? So I completely agree with you. And I still sometimes think, okay, renting, if my context was here, it would be a better decision. And sometimes I also think financially, it might not actually make sense on paper for me to buy, but all the other things in my life around it makes it make sense for me to buy.
It's never black and white.
It's
it really is
never
black
it's
and
never
white.
black and white.
Even though people try and make it out to be.
Yeah.
And sometimes I say things that are black and white in my content. And those are my opinions in the moment. And that's when my opinions sometimes change and I get slated for it online. But that's the price I pay for being on the internet. And I'm fine with it.
Yeah, you can't keep everyone happy. Before we jump into like some of the meat of what we were going to discuss, how early on did you decide to go all in on becoming a content creator?
Oh, wow. So I started in 2020, 2021. I kind of had this really kind of big glow up, or let's say people starting to follow and it becoming a legitimate source or business throughout my graduate scheme at Barclays. So over a 2-year period. At the end of 12 months, the first 12 months, I could have left the job because like
you'd matched
it was starting to become level, the two income sources, but it was more just like I knew the potential of one and the passion was there. But I really liked my graduate scheme and like I just wanted to make sure that I had made the right decision or was going to make the right decision. And what's a year in, like I said, an entire career. So I finished the entire graduate scheme in 2 years. So I did another year basically trying to balance 2 full-time jobs before making the decision. And I think that's when I went all in. So, 3 or 4 months before I had like finished that scheme, I was like, I know what I'm doing now. Yeah. I know it's the right decision, but I'm happy that I've kind of seen it out. And so in the summer of 2022, handed in my notice at the young age of 25 or so, which is crazy. Took this risk, kind of leapt into the world of content as a full-time financial educator and haven't looked back since.
Amazing. Really landed on your feet as well.
Sometimes. My balance isn't always so good.
No, that's it's really great to hear, and I've loved seeing you go strength to strength as well. How obviously people can look at you now and they're like, oh wow, like huge following, like millions of, like you've got over 1 million followers on TikTok and huge accounts on other platforms as well. And like you said before, there's a process to get there, which you have to love that graft. Was yours quite quick? How long did it take you to get 1 million followers?
It was. We plateaued for a while, guys. If you want to, help me. No, I'm joking. I think it was a real instant spike. So within 1 month of my first ever TikTok, I had hit 100,000 followers.
Really?
Yeah. And within the year, I was on 1 million, probably even less than that, maybe 3/4
in your first year?
Yeah, on TikTok.
Wow.
But I've constantly been innovating and experimenting. And I know people might be listening to this with a finance hat on, but from a content creation side, I think the thing that's allowed me to continue for as long as I've done is the constant love for what you do. Loving the process, loving the journey. And then on top of that, it's just experimentation and trying new things. Because I just remember like the crowd that I was growing with at the time are very different to like the crowd that I know 100%. Today. And it's weird, but yeah, there was a very quick rise. And then, I think I focused more on kind of passion and impact. I've tried a few things. I've failed at a few things over the years. But yeah, today I'm in a very, very fortunate position and I'm aware of that.
No, that's amazing. And you deserve it. And longevity is the answer. I think that's the other thing, right? Longevity is the play. And the only way you can do that is by investing in your content, which I've seen you do, and like level that up over the years and change with the times, right? Because the audience that you start with isn't necessarily the one that stays all the time, but there's new audiences coming in that are right for your content.
And the audience that started with me probably might not have the same interests as they are today. Ultimately, all I can do is share what I think I'm interested in, because that's the only way that I'll
and your people in your tribe will find you. That's one thing.
Always.
Yeah,
exactly.
exactly.
We found each other, man.
Exactly.
We found each other. There's the bromance that people wanted to hear.
Exactly, brother. So what I want to talk about today is the cost of arrival. So as financial content creators, for years we've told people to save, to invest, to plan like for the long term, and that's something that we still subscribe to and talk about. And we've done it ourselves, and quite often we've shared our own journeys. And then very recently, I think probably around the same time, was yours before the stamp duty? Yeah,
just before.
So I think it might have been exactly the same time. We both made very big purchases and purchased our first homes. Is it your first?
It's my first.
It's my first. It's
Definitely
my first. It's my first. And purchased homes, right?
Yes.
And for me, and obviously I can't talk to your experience, but it was looking at all of the savings and investments that I'd built up over many years, right? And I was obviously proud to be able to like do that and contribute and watch that grow, and then very quickly see that spent on this other huge milestone that you sort of like are aiming towards, like especially in the UK. I think we have this culture of like aiming towards home ownership. So it was a funny experience, because it was like, on one side I was so happy that I'd, not without stress, hit this financial milestone and becoming a homeowner for the first time. But what that involved was parting with a lot of my money that I'd been saving pretty much my whole adult life, and putting that towards this home and watching the depletion of funds in, I guess, and the trade was to get this property, which is now costing me more money every month. What was that experience like for you? I know you were in a similar boat as well.
I feel like I'm still going through it.
Oh, mate, we're only what?
Like, it's been
2 months in?
2 months since I bought my house.
How many mortgage payments have you had?
2, I think.
And are you like me? You're not living in it yet, are you?
No, so I'm renovating the property, which is more money that I've put aside, but it's still depleting the number very aggressively back towards zero. And when I say zero, if you factor in the mortgage, we are well below zero. Negative numbers are my new best friend at the moment. But I'm still going through all these emotions. There were more impactful points. For example, when you make the purchase and that huge deposit just
oh my goodness,
or you have to send that across. Like, there are moments that are very psychologically both draining and rewarding both at the same time. It's a weird thing, and I'm sure we'll get into like the nitty gritty of it. And I have to I really want to preface everything that I'm saying with, which is like, I know it's a massively fortunate position. And sometimes in this conversation, me and you're both going to be like, oh, this was hard. And people are like, tried not being able to buy property in the first place.
Absolutely.
But like, I think it's important because a lot of people go through these things, and it's still valid to kind of share what happened to you and what went through that. So I know it's from a point of privilege, and
absolutely.
I get all of that.
Absolutely.
So yeah, it's just been crazy because these are new emotions. Like you mentioned, I've been saving hard for a decade, maybe longer. And to think that if I look forward in a decade, I'm going to be close to 40. To kind of get back to where maybe I was at this point, which is probably like the best off or the most wealthy I'll ever be or in a very, very long time, just before you hand all of that money for some bricks and mortar. It's weird, and I'm having to relearn a lot of things that I believe, that I falsely believed, that I rightly believed, and also things that I've taught on the internet, and hopefully we can kind of go through all of those together. Yeah,
absolutely. What was that experience like? Because I remember the day when I had to send my deposit to my lawyer, and for completion, and I just remember thinking, I've never seen that much money in my current account, and it's going to stay there for about a day, and it's going straight out. And the nerves as well, because at the same time, so at the time on Millennial Money, we had put out a post about like cybercrime, and someone said, you need to be careful because I almost lost my house deposit because someone had retrieved my like email login and compromised it, and they sent me an email saying which looked like it was an email from their lawyer saying send money to this account, and it was a scammer, and they could. And then I was thinking at the time, imagine if I sent my life savings to
that would be crazy. Like, I mean, if you're financially savvy, someone like yourself, I'm sure you had your money in loads of different places, and then grouping it all together to be sent in one thing, seeing that number that you probably had on a spreadsheet but never all combined together was a crazy moment. I was like, now that you see it in front of you, you're like, is this the right decision? Oh wait, I am contractually obliged to actually send this money now, and if I don't, I will lose the entire deposit. So it was a crazy moment, seeing all of that, and then it's gone. It's weirdly like not as emotional as you think. Like, it's weird. Like, you're
quite administrative.
It's a bit like out of body experience. Like, you're just doing it, right? And then you send the money, and you're like, right, cool. I'm gonna go pick up the keys now, and this thing is now mine. Like, you want to celebrate, but I feel like it takes a bit of time to process it. And then on your like fraud side of things, which is a big worry
Yeah.
when you're sending that amount of money. I've just got this one tactic that I implement all the time. And if you want a short practical lesson, if you ever need to send big money, send £1 first to that
That's what I
account.
did.
Always
That's
send
what I did.
£1, get confirmed receipt
Yeah.
from the other person, and then it's saved. Like the
Yeah.
person you're sending money to is saved,
Yeah.
and then you can send them the rest.
Yeah.
So I did that, so I was less worried about
I
fraud
sent a
perspective.
£5 to my lawyer, called him, and I said, please, can you tell me if you received this money? And he was like, oh, I haven't received anything yet. I was like, and then he got it, and then I sent the rest.
My lawyer was like, I think you're going to need a little bit more than that to purchase the house. And I was like, it's a test amount. He goes, well, you might want to test some more.
Yeah, no, it's true. Now, there is all these worries, but you're right. It is quite an administrative experience. Again, we're talking from a place of great privilege, but it's the idea of you've been working towards something for so long, right? And then it's the arrival to that milestone. And that very quickly is disrupted. That feeling of accomplishment is very quickly disrupted by a whole new bucket of worries, concerns, responsibilities, which is a very strange experience. And like I said, like you with me, I'm still going through it now.
Yeah, I'd love to kind of like give someone an exact answer, or like, this is how it's going to feel, or this is what it's like. And it's a really tough moment, or it's a really easy moment. But I don't think I'm going to process this for like a really long time. Don't get me wrong, like, it's a huge achievement, a huge milestone. Very happy about it. There were definitely moments of celebration throughout. But, and I think this is the kind of point that we're going to stress a lot. As a financial educator, you spend a lot of time telling people about saving for a really long period of time.
Yeah.
You never quite discuss what happens or like what that money's for. Like, short-term goals, but you're buying a car, maybe go on holiday. But those long-term goals, achieving those ones, when you've kind of been putting the money away in what kind of feels like a mythical pot that's you're never going to stop putting money into.
It seems so far away, right?
Exactly. Yeah. To hit one of those is a really strange feeling, because you're now just starting again. Yeah. And you're having to come up with the next mythical long-term goal that I don't even know yet. Yeah. I'm not even in a position where, to be honest, I can start saving again yet, but the money is still literally going down negatively. And I'm just trying to figure out basically how to reset.
Absolutely. And do you think being online, obviously there's huge privileges and positives to being online and being able to share these experiences, and actually maybe it's good that we're speaking about this, because I've had these conversations offline, and there might be other people that can relate. They're like, oh yeah, like no one tells you about the afterwards, right? That you go from this position of financial security and comfort to not having that security and blanket and starting over. But do you think us being online makes it worse? Like, because do you think social media glamorizes this idea of home ownership and these milestones and big expensive wedding? And
100%. The whole point of social media is you show the good and you hide the ugly, right?
Exactly.
So people, if your mates are buying houses, or your family or friends, you only ever see the picture of them holding up, dangling the keys in front of the property. Yeah. They're not telling you about the multiple 10,000 or multiples of 10,000s deposit they've just transferred out of their account. They're not talking to you about the worry of that first larger deposit mortgage payment.
The first month.
The first one, which is larger because it takes into account like the other one that you've missed out, like the half month leading up to it. They don't tell you about the fact that you have to readjust your brain to the fact that you now need to make that payment on a monthly basis for the next 40, 35, 30 years of your life. Like, that is a crazy amount of time. With rent, all right, you get kicked out, but then like, boom, you're done. 12-month contract, 6-month contract, rolling contracts. Like, that's what I've been experiencing beforehand. No one's talking about that online. You see the fancy stuff, you see the good stuff, you see, like, even now I'm posting about the process of, building the house, the gutting of the house, the cool different redesigns that I'm doing.
Expensive and stressful.
No one has seen the amount I spent on architects, on engineers, on building control.
Wait till you get to decorators. You think that's the finishing part and it's easy, but
once you find out how much concrete costs,
it's mad.
So I think people 100% hide it. I don't think even I've been able to share the full amount. But hopefully through this is going to likely be the start of it, because I think it's really important. Yeah,
I've seen it referred to as the emotional financial hangover that no one talks about on this side of it, because it's the bit that comes afterwards. Like, it's great, it's amazing. Like, I'm so happy that I've been in a position where I've been able to achieve this financial milestone, and I'm super grateful for it. And I know made my dad happy, and he's just like, oh look, my son's been able to buy his first home. And obviously those are really nice feelings. then the other side that you're sort of left with on your own is like, yes, this is amazing. Wow, I need to make sure that I can make this payment forever, like, and all the stuff around it as well. That there is a huge financial hangover, which isn't a bad thing. It's a responsibility that you can step into and step up to. It's just, I think, online you're so focused on, I think, trying to build enough of a savings pot to get a deposit. Right. And sometimes there's so much emphasis on saving enough to get a deposit that we don't often realize that that's pretty much it's a thick layer. It's a thick main layer to achieve, but there's so much that comes around it and after it.
Yeah. Yeah. You can feel the sick rising in my throat. Like if you're renovating, there's so much more around it. Even if you're not, this is like a little thing. Like no one teaches you. Everyone talks about deposit. Like you said, no one talks about the lawyer fees, or the stamp duty, which is a huge amount, or all of these other things. Like I had probably at least a dozen other expenses that had to be covered, hidden costs, things that I wasn't even aware of, despite the multiple levels of research I'd done in the chat GPT that I'd done into like, is this really everything? Is this everything I'm gonna have to pay? Like there are still extra expenses coming out that I hadn't budgeted for. Like there's so much going on because no one shares it. No one talks about it. I'm sure someone somewhere does, but like I hadn't heard it before. So getting hit by a lot of shocks, a lot of reality because of the lack of communication on the internet about this side of things. I think the other thing that I would say is you achieve a goal and you very, very, very quickly, I don't know if you had this, question if it was the right goal.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because you're committed now. That was the goal. You've done it. Was that really what you wanted to do? You gotta be confident with it. Sometimes you gotta just do things with conviction and make up. Fake it till you make it, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's another layer to it. Like a lot of, I mean, people might be like thinking that normally these conversations are quite mathematical, like we're talking about the numbers and all this kind of stuff, but money is so emotional. And that's why we're using all of these words, like these kind of psychology or the feeling of arrival and all this kind of stuff, because money is probably a much bigger side. Like the math side of money is actually quite easy. The psychological side is hella hard.
I always talk about this actually when we run workshops, is that our relationship with money is actually not rational and it's entirely emotional. Like I'd go as far as saying it's entirely emotional. And you look at the triggers that make you spend money sometimes that you hadn't planned for, didn't want to spend, and a lot of them are emotional triggers. And actually our behaviors are being hacked by so many companies to attack some of those emotional triggers, and we have emotional stimuli all the time. For example, when you're tired and hungry, quite often you'll find an Uber Eats advert or a notification that pops up on your phone, and they happen at specific times because your defenses are probably lower then, and they're like, okay, we might be able to coax someone into a takeaway that they hadn't planned for. And someone might have had a really good week being like, okay, I've stuck to my expenses, I've stuck to my food and as I planned. But in that moment, they're like, oh, I'm a bit tired, I can't be bothered to cook, I'm just going to get a takeaway. And that's a small example of how our emotional triggers are attacked. And we make unplanned expenses all the time as a result, because our relationship with money is actually entirely emotional.
Yeah, and then if you mix emotions with the largest purchase that you'll probably ever make in your life, those quick emotional decisions can be detrimental, or the reason behind why something works out perfectly for you. So learning to manage them on the small things is going to save you a lot of headache on the big things. Like right now, little changes that I want to make to my property cost, like you're talking about thousands of pound changes that get dropped just like that. And you're making them because you're like, emotions. Like you're like time pressure, stress, right decision, wrong decision. You just got to make a decision, right? And it costs huge amounts of money. Luckily, like I've really tried to train myself through the small things, through trying to be financially aware, through trying to be financially literate, so that I'm minimizing hopefully the downside of being emotionally triggered around these big goals. But the moment some big things happen in your life, ultimately it's very hard to put your defenses up.
Absolutely.
So look out for the video coming out in probably the next 6 months called "Here Are All the Mistakes I Made," because it's good.
But like it's good to talk about these things, right? And
have to.
And the other thing is, when you're in a position like a home purchase, right, and you're spending so much money, the numbers kind of become, not meaningless, but they kind of like lose the value that you once ascribed to them. When you're thinking about spending tens, hundreds of thousands of pounds, right? Suddenly the hallmark of £1,000, which is a lot of money, it just becomes a starting point for renovation costs. I need to do this. I'll pay these fees, or I need to, and suddenly you lose all the balance that you'd always had when it came to money. But
worryingly,
very worryingly, which is a position that I've found myself in. But and I guess part of that is we saved this money with the intention of eventually spending it, right? And we have to remind ourselves of that. And we might have to accept that we're not emotionally ready to let go. I think that's what I reasoned with myself. Was I emotionally ready to let go of a large portion of my life savings? And I'm now coaching myself, or sort of being my own therapist, really, into reminding myself that this was always the plan. Like, this is something that we had been preparing for, and this is the route that we wanted to take, right?
Yeah, I still make longer decisions over whether or not to buy a coffee out than I do about, like you mentioned, the numbers that drop on your property. It's crazy. Like, I'm like, oh, do I really want to take away 20 quid? That's a lot of money. And it is. Like, these are big, like... Yeah. And then my engineer is like, I'm afraid we've done some revisions and you have to pay us £250. And I'm like, yeah, sent.
Yeah, it's mad. Yeah.
And it is emotional training. That's why, I mean, I'm going through this with a partner, my wife.
Yeah.
And on top of the obvious benefits of doing it with a partner from a financial perspective, 2 salaries, 2 pots of savings, helps out massively. The other benefit is you can bounce off of each other from the emotional perspective.
Yeah.
I'm not having to make decisions on my own. I'm bouncing them off someone else. They're bouncing them off me. There's like at least an element of rationale between us. Like, if I drop the ball, she'll pick it up.
Yeah. Which is so handy. And
obviously the mathematical side is a huge thing about buying a property that, you can double basically everything if you're on the same salary and the same amount of savings. But the psychological win is huge as well, which is, I guess, an unfair advantage of doing this with someone.
Yeah, and that's something that we often overlook, right? There's a huge benefit to being able to do it with someone else, not just on the financial side, but actually the emotional side as well, because someone can anchor you, right? I find myself just looking in my mirror thinking, have we made the right decision? Just doing on my...
You can do one of my skits on my videos. Hey man, was that the right thing to do?
Are you okay?
Too late now. Money's gone.
Literally. But yeah, I think I'm going through that sort of like emotional nurturing to be like, listen, this is what we had planned for, but it will take some time to process the experience of parting with that money. But I think there's also an identity shock, which I can't speak for you, but for me, over the last several years, I've gone from actually previously being someone who wasn't great with money, or that's what I used to tell myself, and then shifting that identity to someone that was much better with money because I learned and had built up this security, and actually built up certain habits which I now have to lose because I'd built up my earning power. I was earning a decent amount of money, which meant that I had bought myself certain luxuries which I could afford. Now suddenly things changed, right? And there is quite an identity shock to be like, oh, I don't think I can do this anymore. Or I can't shop in this place, or maybe I need to change where I go to the gym, and little things like that. And there is an identity shock to starting over, but with all the knowledge of having been somewhere comfortable before.
Yeah, I mean, people are aware that when you buy a property, normally all your savings, or pretty much 99% of your savings, go into it. A lot of your money is going into the mortgage. So this is something that, again, the hangover, the other side of making a big purchase, people don't talk about. You've got into a comfortable routine with your lifestyle because you had that cushion. Like you mentioned about the lifestyle, the clothes, the gym. We're not even talking about excessive things here. We're talking about regular things. Like me and my wife, we've got fun money pots. Yeah. Where from our joint accounts, we both get sent the same amount of money, and there's no question. Like, you do what you want with that money.
Yeah, I like that.
After the house purchase, we still do it because it's important, but the amount that goes in every month has dropped rapidly, which means that we both have to rethink what's going on and all that kind of stuff. Like before, it was quite like a nice amount. It was fine. Now it's like, we're proper like, having to like extra budget the fund money pot, which is a bit hard. Obviously, we were budgeting it from the start, but like you mentioned, it's that drop, and it's the change in lifestyles, the sacrifice that I knew would have to come with doing a big purchase like this. Because if we're going to start saving again, we need to like reset all of our finances, all of the budgeting, all of the systems that we'd put in place before this are out the window. And they took years for us to get right. And now it's like, oh, I've got to start again. Like, we don't even know when to start because things are still leaking out so much that we're like, when do we restart knowing how much we can put towards our next holiday?
Yeah.
Can we even go on a next holiday? Yeah. If we do, like, how are we going to do it? Because we know it's a massively important part of our relationship and not something we want to throw away. And like, that's why, again, if you can set the right things beforehand, you should be able to figure them out afterwards. Like, Ramit Sethi's, who's one of the biggest financial gurus, has this whole thing about spend like luxuriously on the things that you love, but cut mercilessly on the things that you don't love. And you've got to take that to the nth degree after a big purchase. Like, I really, really, really do not love clothes at the moment. I bought like 5 of these t-shirts 2 years ago.
Perfect.
They wash well.
Yeah, perfect. Do you know what? I've enjoyed seeing that in your content as well, actually, that you do call out and just make things realistic. And I've seen that, like I've seen in your videos as well, just the easy thing to say in the binary finance world is like, save all your money, don't enjoy your life, and you're going to have lots of money. That's not realistic. And I think this discussion is also a much more realistic observation of what position life might put you in, right? After making certain purchases. Like, there's a huge emotional experience that comes with arriving at certain milestones. And I love that concept of spend luxuriously on things that are really important to you because it's individual. Like, personal finance is personal. And then cutting mercilessly on things that aren't as important to you, which might be important to other people. And I think that comes into sharper focus when you've made a big purchase.
Yeah, because you really have to rejig things around. I mean, don't get me wrong, I've made plenty of videos that focus on the ideal way to do something, which isn't always so real. And this is something I really wanted to pick up during this conversation because you were talking about, like, you know, save and like, don't spend any of your money and blah, blah, blah. I've made a lot of videos or skits, because I do a lot of skits that have posed that side of things. The idea that, you know, if you do save X amount per month with this percentage return in the stock market over X period of time, you could be looking at large sums of money far beyond what you could ever have imagined saving. Like, I don't know the numbers behind it, but it's like if you saved 100 quid a month at 8% returns, which is the average return of the stock market, you know, everyone's had this one for like 50 years or 45 years, 20 to 60, 20 to 65. You're talking about over 7 figures, over £1 million from having put away probably closer to 100K because of the whole compound interest. And these are like, they're still important to say, but I think this is the side of the conversation that no one has with that. Who does get to save for 45 years uninterrupted the same amount? Like, have you not spent, like, these are the savings I'm now spending. My 45-year plan is gone in the bin, and I genuinely, like, didn't clock this.
Because it's easy to be the mathematical side, right? It's easy to posit something and kind of model your life for 45 years and be like, yeah, I'm always going to be able to save like this.
£100 a month should be easy, right?
Yeah, right. But the reality is life puts you in different positions where you have to adjust, right? And it could be amazing positive things and it could be negative things as well, which we can't always model into our lives. And it's just to be prepared to be flexible.
Yeah. I mean, the maths is amazing. I love reciting those numbers still, and I will continue to do it the whole time because it teaches you a lesson of consistency and time, and not trying to be clever, just trying to be boring and average for a long period of time. I appreciate that you can't add in every caveat, and one of these caveats is I have spent my entire investment portfolio, minus my pension, which we were talking about.
We're going to come on to this.
We'll definitely come on to that. But my stocks and shares ISA to zero.
Same.
And what was vital for me was, I say what was vital for me, what I still haven't quite figured out completely was I've been investing for over 5 years now, which is the minimum time that I say you should really be investing for. I prefer 10 years. And I haven't even been investing for 10 years. I've just gone through a really good market. It's crashed recently. Don't get me wrong. My account is less and I have less to put into my property than I did 6 months ago. But everyone talks about investing like it's a never ending game. And those were the numbers that I was reciting. but you probably need to start or take a little bit of a rain check on yourself to think, what are the goals where I'm probably going to have to start taking out that money? How far away are they? And is investing the right tool for that?
Yeah.
Because no one tells you when to slow down your investing and start picking up your secure savings.
Cash, yeah.
I was pretty much investing up until about a year before I started looking for a property or bought this property. And then I kind of stopped because I was like, if any extra money I should probably put somewhere secure because I want to really know what I have to put into this.
Yeah.
And my investments fluctuated during that time. And that's probably not
when
people say invest for 5-year time horizons, they don't mean then continue investing at year 4 years before, 3 years before, 2 years before, 1 year before. You're probably meant to stop around 3 to 5 years before that goal to start making things a bit more secure. No one talks about that.
Yeah, we were very fortunate. And I think the next big comparison to that is as you approach retirement, and obviously because we're far away from that, we're not thinking about that yet, but financial advisors will say as you approach your age of retirement, you should start moving away from equities and investing into equities and think of more secure portion of your
risk.
Exactly. And your allocation should be more steered towards cash and bonds if you do invest in bonds. To reduce your risk, right? Because you don't want it to have a sudden real downturn just before you're about to retire. I'm the same as you. I had to take all of my investment portfolio down to zero and cash it out so I could buy this home. I was really lucky because I think we were both quite fortunate in the markets that we experienced. I cashed out my entire stocks and shares ISA around before the tariff drama.
Wow.
I was so lucky.
Talk about timing the market.
I don't know.
Not a lesson to be learned, guys. Do not
time the market. But it's because I needed to show the proof of funds in my account.
Got it.
For my home purchase to go through. So that was pure luck. So I cashed out my investment portfolio then. And at the time I was like, oh my God, it's growing so much. Trump's going to come in and it's going to keep flying more. Obviously, we can't and we've seen that we can't predict the future. But then, like you, I had to go down to zero, which I hadn't talked about online, right? Because I was like, I'm going to keep investing, build it up until it's X amount. But this was an important purchase that I needed to make.
This is what you're investing for.
Exactly. And that's the reminder, right? You have to remind yourself, what are you doing this for? Because eventually, we hope, you might find yourself in a position where you reach your goal. Mm-hmm. And the reframing psychologically is that that's a positive thing. You've reached your goal. You've arrived. Now comes the time to part with the money that you've accumulated, which is the experience I think you and I are still going through. But you have to remember that is what you were working towards, right?
Constantly reminding yourself. The investment thing is kind of worrying. I think I just want to add one thing, which was a lot of people might be hearing this conversation and being like, you never talk about like trying to time the market, and you both cashed out perfectly well before. Let me get this very, very straight. If I had cashed out after the entire market had tanked, I was still up.
Yeah.
My money had still returned positive amounts over a long period of time because I've been investing for over 5 years.
Yeah.
This was nothing to do with time the market. Okay, I might have cashed out at a higher amount.
Yeah.
But I was over the 5-year period, I was still well in the green and had done seriously well with my returns.
Yeah.
The issue is when you start to try and shorten that time horizon and be clever with your timing, that's where things start to get a little bit risky and a little bit dodgy. If you had started investing 6 months ago and tried to pull out now, you'd be down 10, 15%. You would have lost some of your money because of the time horizon. So when we share these lessons and we still say, minimum 5 years, but try and make it over 10 years, nothing I'm saying is contradicting that in this conversation at all. And now it's time to start again, right?
Yeah.
I think this was the scary part for me. Withdrawing that money ruined this entire compounding interest story that I told myself of if I just kept going and going and going and going, the spike was great. And I was like, well, if I'm starting again now, I know the difference between starting at 20 and starting at 30. And that's what I'm doing to myself in a way.
Yeah.
I'm now starting again at 30 and losing 10 years. I was like, what am I doing? Is it not just worth not buying this property and just keep investing? But then I actually look the other way and I go, wait a second. By the time I retire, by the time we get to retirement, our generation, it'll probably be close to, mid-70s maybe.
Yeah.
We're talking another 45, 50-year time horizon.
It's a huge amount of time.
It's not exactly like I'm lacking time, and it's not like exactly time's not on my side. In fact, I'm more excited because I wasn't really documenting the start of my investing journey.
Yeah.
Starting from zero.
Yeah.
I get to do that now.
Absolutely. Well, I'm glad you said that. You know what? That's a prompt to me as well. And actually, now you get to do it with all of this extra knowledge and experience, and it's not abstract, right? And also, you've achieved one of the milestones that you were aiming to achieve anyway, and now you get to start again. And actually, now without this is probably the largest purchase you're ever going to make in your life.
I can guarantee you that one.
Right.
The private jet's on it. No, joking.
So then, hopefully, so then now you can actually model your investment journey without a huge disruption more accurately, and you have all of the knowledge of what you've experienced over the last 5 years that you were investing. And I guess in this part of the episode, and I'm glad we can talk about this now, is talking about the reset, right? Talking about practical ways that you and I both, and I'll be curious to hear yours, and I'll talk about mine, that we're planning to start over, and I think a lot of it will come down to actually taking out the advice that we've been giving out for the last few years, right? And actually, how is it that we're going to start again? So for anyone that hasn't started their investment journey, we're with you now. we're starting at the same line, and we're starting over with our savings and investments as well. But what is your thinking now as you're coming into starting over? How are you gonna approach things this time around?
So I'm like, those videos that like if you have or starting from zero, this is what exact steps to do with your paycheck. Like those videos are spot on, and I'm really taking those to heart. So I'm going through the entire process of like the right play for being good with your money. Number one, emergency fund. Yeah. In fact, for me now, it's even bigger because if things go wrong for me, I've got a big amount that I need to kind of cover. My monthly expenses have just gone up. Yeah. With renting, if things go wrong, in some cases, your landlord will be like, fine, just like stop renting and you can maybe move back home. If you're in a property, the bank aren't going to tell you to go back home. You still got to pay them that money. So the emergency fund going to be very, very big. I've got a brand new budget that I need to build out in terms of, where do the spendings go and all that kind of stuff. And then get straight back into investing again because it's all about time in the market. And I want to start that clock as early as possible. But I think the maturity or the level of education that I'm going to be adding to it is that the big goals, there are going to be more big goals in the future that I'm going to want to withdraw from that account for. So I think I'm learning a lot more about the difference between a pension and your stocks and shares ISA or your investments. That pension is really what you should be looking at for that 40, 50-year time horizon. When people start telling you those compound interesting things, we're better to put it in an account that literally locks it away from you until that period of time at the end. Whereas with the stocks and shares ISA and the investments, I'm now actually thinking more about like practical goals that are going to be in over 10 years or over 5 years time. Children, big things in their life. Absolutely. University, covering fees if I could eventually. Like imagine you can do that for your children. School fees. Childcare. I don't know.
Childcare is huge. I've worked with colleagues who have. I never really appreciated how expensive childcare was, and they were like telling me that I sometimes have to decide whether it's more financially sensible for me to not work and just stay home. And these are people that work in the city, very well paid jobs. So and I never really appreciated that.
And I haven't worked out the numbers yet, but I'm really interested to see my split between the emergency funds. The key one for me. That's like a no-brainer, regardless of the mathematical optimal things, a way to do it. That thing is just an absolute crux that you can lean on in bad times. But I'm interested to see what I do with my short-term and long-term savings because that's the play that I think is going to be slightly different this time around. When I was 20 and I was like, screw it, it's all going investments. Short-term savings, I can be so risky. I still am quite
risk
averse. Exactly. Like I still will be able to kind of lean into that side of me. I just think there's going to be like a little twitch in my head being like, you hit one goal, you might have others. Think about them a bit more seriously. How about yourself? Like,
it's so funny you say that. So there's a couple of things. I now am taking my emergency fund way more seriously. Like you, I think there's studies about men generally having a higher appetite for risk and usually being comfortable with a smaller emergency fund. now I'm like, I actually need to have a decent emergency fund in place to give myself mental security and just feel comfortable. And so I'm actually a few months away from being able to start investing. I think I need to work on building up my emergency fund a little bit more.
Same. I don't know what mine is. Like, money's still leaking out. Like I said, I don't know what the emergency fund is going to end up looking like
the same.
The project.
Exactly the same. So for the first few months, I'm actually going to be working on building up my emergency fund. I've just had a load of life events converge and had loads of big expenses, but my emergency fund is going to be my first port of call, which is literally 5 years ago what we used to say all the time: build up your emergency fund. And I'm like listening to myself now. I need to build up my emergency fund. I do have a bit of impatience where I'm thinking, when can I start investing again? But I think for me, I'm like, I just need to build up a pool of cash so I feel comfortable again. The one thing that actually, and you touched on this, and I'd never considered this before. I haven't changed how much I've contributed to my pension. So one thing that hasn't changed is my contribution to my pension has remained the same throughout this whole period, and it remains the same now. And for the first time, I'm really appreciating my pension. Before, I used to be like, pension's great, but I'm not going to see that for ages. Now I'm like, pension's great. I can't touch it. I'm not going to see it for ages. I'm okay. And I had never considered that before, because not being able to access that pool of security, which is my money that's been invested and put away for a long period of time, is in this moment of my life giving me a lot of comfort, because I know I've built up a significant pension pot over the years with employer matched contributions, but like contributing myself to my own pension pot. I'm really happy for that. Whereas previously I dissociated from it a little bit, because I'm like, yeah, I mean, this is quite a big number, but when am I going to see that, right? That has suddenly changed, and I really appreciate my pension. And that's the only investment pot that I'm continuing to contribute to in the same way, because I've got myself used to the fact that that's something that I'm always contributing towards, and I don't think about it. So that is actually my only investment pot that I'm continuing to invest into in the same way, and it's giving me a lot of comfort. And for the next few months, it's going to be, well, that I'm also leaking cash at the moment. So for the next few months, it's going to be trying to build up my emergency fund as much as possible. And then I've got a few other medium to big purchases that I need to make in the near to short term. I've been trying to replace my car for ages. But that's been pushed aside for a bit. Yeah. And then I think I'm hoping this year, I'll think about starting to invest again, and have I'll know how much I can afford to put away. Yeah.
It's just about I'm in a period of my life where it's all about reprioritizing. And to be frank, I talk about the emergency fund. I talk about wanting to start investing again from a small amount, a little bit every month, and figuring out that kind of stuff. Until this house is done and the money stops leaking out, my financial life is a bit in chaos.
Absolutely, same. And I can't predict it.
I'm happy to say that I don't know on a monthly basis how much I'm going to be able to save. At the moment, it is nothing until the project is over, because everything that I have is going into this project. Yeah. So I'm in this weird place where I know all the financial rules. I know the emergency fund. I'm trying to keep the emergency fund is the one thing I'm keeping. Yeah, that has to be there. Something will go wrong. Yeah, unexpected expenses are the most they say the only two things guaranteed in life are tax and death. Yeah. Well, unexpected expenses, throw that one in there. Something will break. Your washing machine cannot work forever. It is a science.
I really hope it doesn't happen anytime
soon.
Not
even have a washing machine right now. So right now, it's a weird place. I'm in this whilst the renovation happens. I'm in flux. I'm in a bit of chaos. I don't really know, which is the worst case for someone that is obsessed with finances and personal finance in particular, because there's nothing I love more than a beautiful budget. Yeah. I know how much came in this month, and I know how much is going out, and I know what all my expenses are. I have unknown expenses for every month for the next few months. Yeah. So this period, I would love to be able to come out the other side of it with a bit more of a structure that I can share with someone. This is how you should manage it. Yeah. But I don't know if I will. And I think I just have to be frank and honest about that.
I think that's a big lesson. Be prepared to be unprepared, especially if you're someone that's really used to having an understanding of where things are going to be. In this period of your life, you just have to be prepared that things will be a bit chaotic, and forgive yourself a little bit. I think that's a big thing. That's what I'm trying to tell myself. Obviously, don't be stupid, but forgive yourself. Things are going to be quite challenging, and it's hard to predict everything. And that's okay. It's about bringing yourself back down to some sort of steady
Yeah.
course, which I'm trying to do. Like my budget for the last 2 months, which is the first 2 months I've been having to pay my mortgage, is I've gone over every month because of things that I couldn't predict, right? And I'm sort of learning, okay, how can I bring myself back down to some sort of norm?
It's just because there's no uniform way of doing this.
Yeah.
And I think that's the part of finance. That's why people don't talk about it, because we don't know. Like, we're trying to have this conversation now. People listening are probably thinking like, oh, you've gone a bit there and then you've gone a bit there. But that's because like no one's taught this part to us. There's no book or manuscript that teaches you how to do this part, really. You have to just experience it and kind of make your way through it. Don't get me wrong, it's bloody brilliant. And I'm so proud of myself for where I am now. But like, this is going to be chaos. I'm going to get to the other side, and hopefully, like I said, I teach as I learn. Yeah. So hopefully I'm going to teach a lot of lessons and a lot of mistakes that I made through this and things that I would do differently. Because don't get me wrong, there's going to be so many things I wish I did differently. Yeah. And then I'm going to come out the other side and it's going to feel calm again. I don't even care if my budget is 0 for the month. At least I know that my budget is 0 for the month. Right now I'm tricking myself into thinking that I can still get a meal deal. My accountant's probably screaming like, stop the freaking meal deal, mate.
I'm sort of looking at my accounts thinking, this doesn't fit, but I'm sure
move that over there. Just move the decimal place 1 to the right. It'll be fine. It's chaos. It is. It's brilliant chaos because it's the goal that you wanted in your life. Yeah. Often with a big purchase, you think it's just one and done the next day. You now are re-aware of everything that's going on in your life. And like one thing that I always like have been proud of is I know where all my money is and I know what my financial position is. I am cash flowing and modeling like hell at the moment, but every week it looks different. Yeah. As numbers change, things go up, things go down. I love when things go up. Have to spend less money than I thought I did. Hell yeah. I'm leaning into the chaos. And like I said, there'll be a lot of lessons. I'll try and share as much as I can through social media. I'm sure you will as well. But these conversations alone, hopefully someone listening can just be there. And I think the whole point of this is they can be there or listen to it and be like, I'm going through that. I'm about to go through that. At least I know there are other people doing the same and they're talking about it. And like I can expecting chaos is way better than just getting hit by it, right? Yeah,
absolutely. And one thing I interviewed Ryan from Making Money Simple, and he said he sort of said something, and he was talking about the markets, but he said, if in doubt, just zoom out. And I think you can apply that to your life, right? In this moment of our lives, it feels really, really chaotic. It's only been 2 months, right? And we need to step back and think, okay, we'll remember this period of our lives where it was really chaotic, but we were able to do this amazing thing that we'd always planned to do. And hopefully it will come back to some sort of semblance of normality, right? And we have to remember that saving and investing, which we've always been talking about, is such a long-term game, right? It's a long-term game. This isn't anything that we're planning to do for the short term. And it will take time. You can see the chaos that me and Gabe are in right now.
The turmoil. Husband being like, you know what to do? Because I could do with some advice right now.
But over a long period of time, these things do normalize if you take and listen to the right advice. And we need to listen to our own advice, basically. So it's a hallmark textbook case study of whether we're going to take our own advice that we've been dishing out for years and be able to bring things back to a norm, which at the end of the day gives me comfort.
Yeah, normality, good old boring money. I love average. I love boring. That is what I live for. And yeah, your zoom out idea is so spot on. I mean, I've used the word chaos so many times. This has been estimated chaos. Like I'm doing this all within my means, or like trying to like, everything has some calculation. I'm just saying the calculations are sometimes very off. But the zoom out point is so spot on. I remember I was listening to someone the other day. They were trying to talk about why does this market crash feel different to every other one in the past? Like, why does this one feel like, you know, everything was going to zero? This was the time to sell off your portfolios because it wasn't going to get better. And the simple answer was because we know how all the other stories ended. Yeah. We know that everything ended up being fine after, like, in recent history. After the 2008 crash, things recovered. After COVID crash, things recovered. After the 2000 crash, things recovered. This is the only one that things haven't recovered yet. So it's just because you're living in it and you don't know how it ends. Yeah. But the world is just an uncertain place. Morgan Housel, that was who was talking it. If you ever read Psychology of Money, guys, like this guy, gems, wisdom.
Pure gems.
So yeah, it's going to be fun to see which one of us comes out of this listening to our own advice. Only one of our financial, personal, like social media accounts will still exist in 6 months and stick around to see who it is. but it'll be fun. It's going to be fun. We'll both, I'm sure, try and document it. And the other thing I was going to say is like, we should come back here in 50 years time when we're both retired men, hopefully, and talk about, laugh about that one and then stress about the chaos of like trying to figure out how to like be retired, because that's like this done to a permanent basis where, you know, the cash flow is negative. It's never like going up again. It's always going down. So look, guys, subscribe now. So that in 45 years you can listen to the next episode of me and Niaz chatting about this stuff.
Yeah, but as ever, and as you've been doing throughout, we will teach as we learn, right? And share our experiences. And I think that's the best way. And that's the most honest and authentic way. And we're in a position which is amazing right now, of great privilege, that we've been able to arrive at certain financial milestones. And we can shed light on the chaos that comes with it as well. The estimated chaos, as you said. But I think, as you say, in the end, thinking long term and sticking to the golden principles that we constantly talk about and revert back to, in the end makes things a lot more predictable and makes things okay again, even if it feels massively unpredictable at this moment in time. Thank you for sharing your experiences, and thank you for promising to continue to share on your channels as well. And I think loads of people will benefit. But one thing that we like to do to close is ask our guests whether you have any loose change to share with our audience. It could be something very silly, it can be something very profound, something you're reading, but any departing thoughts that you have for our audience.
Do you know what? You prompted me on this earlier. I'm going to be upfront, guys. Sometimes we chat before the podcast record. And I went through so many things in my brain thinking like, what on earth can I share? And I feel like the life lessons I'm getting at the moment are like crazy and intense. And sometimes I'm learning the like smartest thing ever. And then I have to relearn it a bit later. But I suppose like just general principles in life that like I'm constantly being like hit with at the moment are learn to say no. Such a big one. Like I am someone who knows that's the right thing to do and yet still takes on too much.
Yeah.
So learning to say no will be one of the biggest superpowers that you have in your entire life. And so I don't even know how to phrase this, but like people are everything.
Yeah.
Like the people around you, like, are the most important thing. Like when like, you're going through this turmoil, like you just ground yourself with your friends and your family and what's important to you. Like I'm just figuring out so much like the important things in life versus the unimportant things in life. Like driving, like I was walking through town the other day and I saw some guy driving a Ferrari and I was just like, this guy just wants people to look at him. Like that's what it is. Don't get me wrong, if I'm driving a Ferrari one day, feel free to call me whatever rude word under the sun you want to call me. But I was just like, it's so important to like really like value what's important to you and what's important to like spend your time, your energy and your money on. So that's like the serious lessons that I guess I've been learning. And then just, remember to have fun. I think in these periods of my life, like there's so much going on in my brain and sometimes you just have to set aside time to just not do anything.
Yeah. Preach.
I will, like, by the way, when I'm saying this crap, like I'm teaching myself as I'm speaking. Like I've constantly like, I'm like 10 o'clock at night thinking like, oh, what doors am I going to put in the house? Just stop, mate. Just stop, like chill, speak to someone, have fun, do something that's not something on your brain. So my loose change, if I had to pick any of those, would be like find some time to do nothing, guys. It's such an important element of your life. And by do nothing, I mean that could be a hang with friends. Do nothing important. Just be silly. Have fun. And hopefully...
don't take yourself too seriously.
Exactly. Watch certain football teams not lift trophies. Well, depending on the time of this release, I'm going to look like a massive idiot. Which is why no one is being stated inside of it.
Oh, I don't even want to talk about that. But I love that, brother. Thank you so much for joining us. And please do keep sharing. You're impacting loads of people and we definitely appreciate it, even if you don't hear it all the time. Thank you for being here.